Hello BookTube, my name is Daniel. Welcome back to my channel, The Guilty Feet, where I have an extraordinarily shiny head, but absolutely no rhythm. So today I'm going to do my Friday reads, which actually consists of one book, which I read in the last week. And before I talk about that book and give you my thoughts on it, I'm going to take you through my history with this author, which is not comprehensive, but I have 7 of his books, of which the latest is the 7th, to talk about. So let's start with, we're talking about Jonathan Franzen. The book is Crossroads. I'm going to get to it. It's the first Jonathan Franzen I read, as many people, it was their first Franzen, was The Corrections, came out in 2002, I believe, and was picked by Oprah Winfrey as her book club book of the month, which Franzen perhaps did not make the most gracious response when he found out he'd been picked, and there was a suggestion that he was being very snobby. He didn't, at that time, Oprah's book picks were guaranteed to sell 1 million. They were on everyone's bedside tables, and it was a real mark of success. And Franzen, I think, the suggestion was that he didn't necessarily think his book was for everybody, that it was a particular kind of literary fiction that didn't necessarily fit in with what the perception of an Oprah Winfrey's book pick. I think in the end, he didn't come out of it so badly. There was an interview. She did interview him. Like, on the one hand, she'd been horribly insulted, or that's how the media portrayal of it was, that Oprah had been insulted, but was also in a bind. Having picked the book, she couldn't then say, well, he's not interested, and he's insulted my book club, therefore I'm no longer going to pick it. She'd already picked it. And in the end, I think it was a lot of hype around it. It wasn't necessarily that he was being particularly rude. I don't think Oprah was outraged and insulted, and the interview sort of went off fairly, it was fairly easygoing, and the book did sell huge numbers, and there's a good reason. It's absolutely terrific. If you haven't read The Corrections, a big chunky book, this is 600 pages or so, which is roughly where I think Franzen then sits out for the next 3 volumes after this. Just really good, and once you get The Corrections, there's not going to be something startling in the other works. This is the milieu that Franzen is writing, which is about the American family in the second half of the 20th century up to now, and he's a white bloke. If that's a barrier to being able to enjoy his books, that's fine as well. But that's the world that he's writing about. It was a time when that was the only world that was ever written about. I don't think that's necessarily true today. I'm not saying it's an even playing field, but I don't think we have. I think we have more opportunities to read more diversely. But reading diversely, I think, should still include the odd middle-aged white bloke, of which Franzen is one, and one that I would recommend. Jonathan Franzen's The Corrections. His next novel after that was Freedom, also great enough. You can see after this, this is like an airport edition that I think I asked my mum to pick up one time when she was visiting. After that, I started buying them in hardback because my sense is that he's an important novelist, and I want to be up on these things. Freedom was another good read. I think it's of the 4 novels of his that I've read, I think it's the least, or at least the least memorable, and this comes out, I picked this up in this is a good while after The Corrections. The Corrections 2002, this is 2011, so we waited almost a decade forward at this point, and it was good, but it was a placeholder as far as I'm concerned. After that, so that's 2011, after that we have in 2015, I believe, Purity. So this was the 3rd of his books that I read, and absolutely terrific. There's an ecological bent to this. Again, the same concerns about family and the fragility of family, but the primacy of family as the center, the focal point of what it is to be American. And yes, again, it's a white, middle-class, Christian American family, but I'm told that they exist, and that is the world that Franzen is writing about. Purity was great. Let's see how long this one is. It's another 600 plus pages, I think. 500, no, right in the same ballpark, 560 pages again. I think that's where all of these have been. Just before I get to his latest novels, that's 2015, and now we have a new novel this year. Before I want to talk a little bit about the non-fiction, because once I started reading Franzen, reading about Franzen's fitting him into the literary landscape, we know that he's a good friend of David Foster Wallace, another white guy that some of you may choose not to read. They're I think contemporaries, competitors to some extent, and very much this is the generation that comes after Roth and Updike, and these are the young. Well, they were young bloods. Now they're all in there. Those that are still with us have aged up. But the non-fiction, I think, is also where Franzen shines. I would say Franzen is a better novelist. I prefer Franzen's novels to his non-fiction, though non-fiction is great. I think it flips the other way with David Foster Wallace. As much as I admired Infinite Jest, I think his non-fiction is superior to his fiction, but worth looking at Franzen's non-fiction. First collection I have is How to Be Alone, which includes the essay Why Bother, which was originally published in Harper's in about 1996. This collection was published just after on the back of the correction. So this is the early 2000s, 2002, 3-ish. But the Why Bother essay in here was expanded from an essay he wrote in Harper's, and it's really about why bother writing, why bother reading, and what is the state of the novel in the early 21st century. And it's a real manifesto without being in your face, or sort of it's not didactic, but it is his own manifesto of why am I doing this, and why is this family unit of concern to me? Why am I writing about Americans? Why is there anything of value in this as a subject for literature? The rest of the collection is great as well, but that's How to Be Alone, specifically the essay Why Bother, which I'm sure you can find online if you just want to read that. I also have The Discomfort Zone, which has a bookmark sitting out the top of it, because I think I lent this to my son once, and he clearly didn't get through it, but I have read the whole thing. I must have picked this up secondhand, lovely, signed by... It says Jane Ann Dawson in spring 2007, and I picked this up November 2007. So Jane Ann Dawson with a lovely florid signature did not hang on to the book for terribly long. But hardback, I would have picked this up secondhand. I think these are more sort of personal essays rather than How to Be Alone, which was like a standard sort of literary essay collection. Not good, but forgettable. And then most recently, before the last novel, I read Farther Away, which I picked up and had sitting on my shelf for a while. I don't know where I picked this up. I feel like I found this free somewhere. Someone was giving it away at work, and I said, "Oh, Jonathan Franzen essays that I haven't read. I should do that." And then never read it, and then read it in during the lockdown when I didn't have any books, and this came to the top of the pile. Farther Away is an older, more reflective Jonathan Franzen. At the heart of this is David Foster Wallace and the aftermath of Foster Wallace taking his own life, and Franzen reflecting on his friendship, his relationship with Foster Wallace. I think it includes the eulogy that he gave, and then there's also stuff about bird watching, and it's a very gentle, contemplative, really quite wonderful essay collection that sort of refreshed and renewed my interest in Franzen. I read him, and I read him because he was important. The correction was great, but that's already 20 years ago. Purity I liked more than some others. The other essay collections were readable. This one really, I think, revealed him as a person, as a human being, and as someone who's interested in writing about himself and about other human beings. So on the back of this, which I was kind of reluctant to read and only read because I had no new books coming in, I got super excited again about the announcement of a new novel. And this week I read Crossroads by Jonathan Franzen, another 580 pages, I think, this one. This is the American edition, retailed for $30, and I got it for considerably less than that from Amazon.com and shipped free to Israel because, well, hey. what a terrific, terrific piece of work. If you have any love of the modern novel, and for any reason say, well, I'm not going to read Franzen, do just try. This is so far out of my world because I'm not part of it. So let me tell you a little bit about it. This is a book set in the early 70s, somewhere in Middle America. It's about a pastor and his family, 4 kids, all with varying degrees of issues, and the parents have issues, and going through all sorts of crises in their lives, centered around the church of which he's a pastor, and his standing in that church. He's an assistant, but I don't even know what the official terms are for the different offices in this church. But he's an assistant. He's been running a youth group, even though he's sort of getting older and is now 50 odd, and his kids have passed through this youth group and with greater and lesser degrees of embarrassment the fact that he was running it. But a younger, hipper, longer haired young assistant has come in and taken over, in some ways quite literally, the youth group, and he gets pushed out. Russ, who is the first point of view character in this. We have chapters from the points of view of Russ, his wife Marion, 3 of the 4 children, Clem, Becky and Perry, and then the youngest child, Judson, is 9-10 years old, and so we don't get his POV. But we see from behind the eyes of each of these characters and what they're going through, and boy, some of the ways in which they are messed up are totally mundane. Some of them are shocking and upsetting, would be at any time, and some of them are 1971, 72, whenever it is, 71 I think, as to be recognizable but sort of historic. But what we in this book, more than I think at any, or certainly more than I remember in the earlier novels, yes, the family is right at the heart of this, but the family is not just about love and respect and honor and integrity. What we see here, the relationships, we have a father, a mother, an older son, a daughter, middle son, and then the younger child is really just ornamental. What we have here is a power dynamic and the exploration of the different ways the different holds families have over each other, the parent-child relationship, the child's hold over the parents, the respect that is transmitted in both directions, the loss of respect of a wife for a husband, of a son for a father, of a mother for a child, how each of these little power dynamics plays out is just, to me, was breathtaking, Tolstovian, and just a wonderful bit. This is not just a sort of soapy family saga. This is a really, intense is the wrong word, but definitely we get under the surface here and we start scratching and understanding how power dynamics work in different ways and the ups and downs of these relationships over what is essentially a very short period of time. I think part of the strongest part of all the different points of views, each one has much to offer, and I don't want to spoil any of the story or talk about the reasons power dynamics change throughout the story, but there's no cop-out here. Right up to the end, which I finished this morning before I came to work, the ending was absolutely delicious, and after recently complaining about the Sally Rooney book completely failing to stick the landing and just throwing everything out, this book absolutely nails the landing in a way that I could not have predicted earlier. The person who, by the end of the book, is at the top of this power dynamic and has control over the rest of the family and makes the decisions that everyone else is then forced to get in line with, was utterly unexpected, absolutely marvelous, and and now that we know this is the first part of a trilogy, although I have no information about whether the trilogy continues with the same characters, the same town, or whatever it is playing out. But the fact this is just the first part of a trilogy that Franzen is already planning is super exciting to me. I know not everyone's going to read Crossroads, but I would be amazed if anyone were to read it and be disappointed. It's meaty, it's funny, it's wise, it's right on the money. It has that level of scrutiny and honest, clear-eyed look at the way people interact and the power dynamics of teenagers in school, of kids in a youth group, of children and parents, which I just absolutely recognizable and pinned to the board like one of Nabokov's butterflies. I don't have much more to say. I don't want to talk about plot, and I don't want to talk about individual things happening in the book. Jonathan Franzen, I'm giving this review, and the reason why I talk about the books I've read is to give you some context. I've read Franzen. I read him starting with The Corrections, which is as good as its reputation. This, I think, may be his best book that I've read so far. Certainly the best novel of his. I think it beats out The Corrections in my mind, and definitely worth your time. The Corrections by Jonathan Franzen, highly recommended. And then, so I finished that. So the next book that I'm going to read going into the weekend, I picked from my TBR, Havana Blue by Leonardo Padura, which is translated from the Spanish, I believe. Born in Havana, lives in Cuba. So this is a Cuban detective story. This was not the first one translated, I think, but I think this is the first one in the series. Lieutenant Mario Conde. So I know nothing about this. It's part of the Havana Quartet. And so let me get the credit the translator. Translated from the Spanish by Peter Bush. And yeah, I picked this up secondhand, and there is a whole note written there, and I'm wondering if that's, I have no idea if that's a signature from the author or not. Don't know. Bitter Lemon Press in London. There's a Havana Quartet. I think this is the first in the quartet, although it wasn't the first one to be translated, so I nerdily decided I would start with the first in the series as they were originally written. I'll let you know how this goes. This should be a quick zippy read, 250 pages. I'm looking forward to getting to this. Translated detective fiction is something I've been trying to pursue. I'll let you know how it goes. I hope you have a great weekend. Read The Corrections. Read other Franzen if you like, but I think The Corrections is now my favourite of his novels. Take care. Have a great weekend. Bye.